do the best you can. I'm telling myself the same thing too, so. Okay, Margaret just gave me the wave that we're live, so good evening. My name is Rob Vandenhengel. I am the president of the Huron County Federation of Agriculture, and I will be sharing the moderator duty this evening with Chris Cossett, who is the president of the Bruce County Federation. I would like to welcome everyone to the all candidates meeting for the Huron-Bruce riding. This meeting is sponsored by both the Bruce and Huron County Federations of Agriculture. This meeting is intended to allow the voters of Huron-Bruce to hear the candidates' answers to the issues in Huron-Bruce. This evening, we have representatives. We have Ben Lobb, who is a representative of the Conservative Party, James Rice, a representative of the Liberal Party, Jan Johnstone, who is a representative for the New Democratic Party, and Justin Smith, who is an independent for the riding. Jack Stecco, who is a People's Party candidate for the riding, has sent his regrets that he could not attend tonight. Between Bruce and Huron County, we have set the format as follows. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. Just prior to the meeting, the speaking order was determined, and the speaking order for tonight is Jan Johnstone is number 1, Ben Lobb is number 2, James Rice is number 3, and Justin Smith is number 4. They will give their opening remarks in that order and in the reverse order for their closing statements. So there will be an official timer who will provide a countdown. Each candidate will be limited to 2 minutes to answer a question and will be given a warning with 30 seconds left. So there'll be a yellow piece of paper held up when they have 30 seconds left. After 2 minutes, after a red piece of paper is held up, they will be muted. A panel of Federation directors will coordinate questions. The Bruce and Huron Federation email accounts were provided to the membership in advance of this meeting for any members wishing to submit a question. These email accounts will be monitored during this meeting as well. We have had a good response for questions. We thank everyone for submitting, and we apologize if we don't have time for all questions submitted. All candidates will have an opportunity to answer all the questions presented in the allocated time frame. If any candidate becomes disruptive, we will ask you to leave the meeting, or an administrator will remove you from the meeting. If a candidate attempts to present a speech not related to the question posed, their microphone will be muted. The purpose of this evening is to inform the voters of Huron-Bruce where the various candidates stand on the issues. And so with that, we will move into the opening statements. So Jan Johnstone, you have the floor now for the next 2 minutes.
Thank you to Huron and Bruce County Federations of Agriculture for hosting this all candidates debate. My name is Jan Johnstone and I am your NDP candidate. My family and I have lived in Huron-Bruce for over 30 years and live in the town of Kincardine. My husband Gord worked for Bruce Power and we have 3 girls. My Scottish heritage serves me very well, and I am on the executive of the Kincardine Scottish Festival and Highland Games, an award-winning festival that lasts 3 days and welcomes thousands of visitors from all over North America. As a social worker, I have worked in both Huron and Bruce counties in child welfare, hospital and community-based mental health care, community development work in the not-for-profit sector, and business improvement within the private sector. My passion for public education grows from my dedication to service to others. I'm an elected school board trustee for over 20 years and the vice chair of the Blue Water District School Board. We are responsible for a yearly budget of over $200 million and are the second largest employer in Huron-Bruce. Many people know me as an ardent supporter of public education. I have worked with parents, community leaders, education partners, and students because I believe deeply that all children, regardless of their background, deserve a chance to succeed in life. Overall, I've dedicated my life to improving the lives of those who call Huron-Bruce home, and I'm ready to take that dedication to Ottawa. It's time to do better. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP team are ready to lead us forward together with bold new universal programs that meet the needs of Canadians and benefit rural communities. The heart of our platform is focused on people, making life more affordable and building a better future for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Okay, the next speaker, number 2 tonight, is Ben Lobb. So go ahead, Ben.
Thanks very much, Rob and Chris. Good evening. My name is Ben Lobb, and I'm the Conservative candidate for the riding of Huron-Bruce. I would like to thank the Huron and Bruce Federations of Agriculture for hosting tonight's debate. I'd like to congratulate all the candidates and thank everyone for watching at home. A new Conservative government will work with Canadians to build a better Canada, a more prosperous Canada. We will invest in rural infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, bridges, community centers, and high-speed internet to every household by 2025. We will open new markets for our livestock, grain, and oilseed producers in our free trade agreements and demand fair treatment on our existing deals. We will defend supply management. We will address the chronic agriculture labor shortages across all skill levels. A Conservative government will develop a long-term strategy to attract skilled workers to the meat processing sector, which is currently facing a 30,000 worker deficit. We will reform business risk management programs such as agri-stability and agri-recovery. We will implement a grocery store supply code of conduct to protect farmers, processors, and consumers. I look forward to tonight's debate. On September 20th, I ask you to vote Ben Lobb, vote Conservative. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. Next up, we have James Rice. Go ahead, James.
Thanks, Rob. So good evening, everybody. I'm James Rice, the Liberal candidate here in Huron-Bruce. I'd like to echo my colleagues' comments and thank the Bruce and Huron County Federations of Agriculture for hosting tonight's event. It's incredibly important that issues in the agri-food industry that are critical to our local economy are given sufficient attention. Agriculture has been something that I've been passionate about for a long time, going back to my involvement with the Tiverton Agricultural Society. During the campaign, since I became the Liberal candidate, I've made an effort to ensure engagement with ag stakeholders and make sure it's a significant part of my campaign. And just yesterday, I had an agricultural roundtable where I met with farmers in the beef, poultry, dairy, egg, cash crop, and swine sectors from across our riding to hear about their priorities and issues. Overall, when I've been driving across the riding, speaking with voters, I can't help but appreciate how lucky we are to live on some of the most productive agricultural land in the world. While it hasn't been a perfect year, it's been a pretty darn good growing season for a number I've spoken to. And I've even come across a few who've decided to plant some soybeans after they take their wheat off for the summer. One of them asked if I thought it was a bit early to be having an election. And I said, it could be, but don't you think it's a bit late to be planting soys? His response was the same, it could be. In all seriousness though, this election is important in a way that few other elections ever have been. We've just come through one of the most disruptive periods in living memory, and we have some serious choices to make as a country going forward. The agri-food industry itself was particularly disrupted, and I'm proud of the Liberal government's response to the challenges that the agricultural sector has had to face. We've made great progress, but there's more work to do. And I'm looking forward to having a chance to speak about the Liberal Party's plan to support the farmers and workers in the agricultural sector going forward.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, James. And fourth, we have Justin. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Justin. You're muted, Justin.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I thought someone was unmuting me for myself. So anyway, yes. Good evening, everyone. And as everyone, thank you for bringing us together tonight. This is very beneficial. So my name is Justin Smith, and I was born and raised in Goderich, well, Huron Haven, just north of Goderich. I have a bachelor's degree in law and justice, and that's what I believe in, law and justice, as well as freedom. So I'm going to dive right in and not beating around the bush. As I said before, I believe in freedom freedom from an overreaching government who is power hungry and wants to spend all the money they can get their hands on. I will advocate to completely remove the carbon tax and any other carbon-based schemes. I will lower business and farm taxes and end budgeted subsidies and corporate bailouts. Why take your tax money and give it to companies that you may not agree with or support? Having more money in your pockets, the farmers would be able to continue to grow. And since we're a rural riding, as well as the agriculture, we have a lot of farmers, hunters, and other people who use firearms lawfully and safely, but can't because of illogical fallacies. I would consolidate all of our firearm laws into one comprehensive piece of legislation with more specific definitions. Licenses would be good for 10 years, increase magazine capacity, and classify firearms based only on function and not looks. Agriculture is very important. I lived on a cash crop farm for a number of years, and I know what it's like. We need to support our farms and farmers because they deserve it, and we need what they produce. As an independent, you tell me what you want, and I fight for it, not the other way around. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Justin. Thank you all for your opening remarks. For the first question tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Thank you. Thank you, all candidates. And just a reminder for the candidates that the questions will be put into the chat if they wish to review them as we're going through this. So our first question is, our rural road infrastructure in Huron and Bruce is in sad shape. Narrow roads, 15-ton bridges extra are normal, and our rural roads, this 50-plus-year-old road system is very restrictive to modern agricultural, modern trucks and farm equipment, are very restricted in navigating rural Huron and Bruce County. What plans has your government got to assist our rural municipalities in upgrading our rural roads structure to 2021 needs? Jen, your first response, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the question. I understand that they're looking and they're asking questions about roads. Roads are usually have to do with provincial legislation or under that umbrella. Having said that, I think that in terms of that is that, of course, the NDP very much believes in a sustainability for the agriculture and our producers and our farm families, and that that they would be looking at if that is a definitely a need in rural, and you could say northern communities, that we would look at helping with that. So thank you. And thank you for the question again.
Ben Lobb, please, next second.
Okay, thanks, Chris, for the question. And you'll notice I included that in my opening statement because driving up and down the county roads, you can see it every day. The first thing is we need to allocate a higher percentage of the total infrastructure dollars to rural. Currently, it's only 3%, and that's just not enough. Rural Ontario, rural Canada needs much larger recognition. And in terms of dollars, the other thing that is really wrong with the system is that the provinces has to go to the federal government, and you have somebody in Canada in the federal government and the federal cabinet that makes the decision. It's completely backwards. The dollars should flow from the federal government to the provincial government with the influence of the county and the municipal government. That's the biggest problem we have in getting the dollars out, and we're going to change that and make it work for municipalities.
Thank you, Ben. James, it'll be your turn to respond to that question, please.
Thanks, Chris. Rural communities have unique needs, challenges, and opportunities. These include access to better community infrastructure, such as improved roads and bridges, cleaner drinking water, affordable housing, and faster, more reliable internet service, all of which can make a big difference in the quality of life of rural Canadians. The Government of Canada is making significant investments that are creating opportunities for growth and diversification to ensure that rural Canada continues to thrive. The Rural Economic Development Strategy outlines a whole of government approach to meeting the economic and social development and sustainability needs of rural Canadians. It's unfortunate that rural infrastructure is tied up in various levels of government. Provincial, municipality, and federal governments have a role to play. But when that happens, when resources are being allocated from the federal government, we need a strong voice at the table to make sure we get our fair share, to make sure that rural Canada is no longer ignored, and make sure that we get the resources and the infrastructure we need in our communities. And that's what you'll get with me as your member of parliament.
Thank you, sir. Justin.
Right. Yes, very good question. Rural roads are definitely very important. As farms continue to grow, the production needs to be expanded. They have to get their product to market somehow. And as equipment gets larger and heavier, we definitely need to be able to handle that on the roadway. So as Ben Lobb mentioned, an issue is funding getting to where it needs to be. So I definitely believe we need to allocate a little bit more and have it be a more streamlined process to we manage to get the money to where it needs to be in order to help and sustain and continue to grow our agricultural community. Thank you.
Okay. Question number 2 for tonight. The order for answering for this question will be Ben will go first, then James, then Justin, and then Jan. So question number 2. What strategies would your party use to encourage Canadian workers off of government COVID support and back into the workforce to a meaningful job again? Okay, go ahead, Ben.
Thanks for the question. And this is likely the most important question for our economic recovery going forward. Aaron O'Toole has a 1 million job program to get Canadians back to work. And we need to encourage employers and employees, potential employees, to get back to work. So they, in the program, Aaron has included an incentive for employers to hire employees. And really it is about finding the need. And we also recognize that there will be workers now, that potential workers that'll been off work for 18 months. And there may need to be some retraining. So that will be offered as well. But really finding a match and recognizing that it's safe to go back to work and trying to help people get back to work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. James, your turn.
Okay, thanks, Rob. So there's a lot of ways that a re-elected Liberal government will help people get back to work. We're well positioned to have our economy come roaring back. So firstly, we have to finish the fight against COVID-19. That means increase access to vaccines. That means booster vaccines when the provinces and territories are ready to administer them. That also means we need $10 a day access to universal childcare. We have a large portion of the economy, mostly moms, that are being held back. And with our $10 a day childcare plan, they'll be able to get back into the workforce and they'll be able to contribute to our economy like they deserve to. Well, Aaron O'Toole and the Conservatives would rip up those agreements we've already signed. We'll maintain them and be proud of them so that we have this large portion of people able to reintegrate and participate in the workforce. We'll also have things like eliminating interest on student loans, the Canada Student Loan Program, doubling the Canada Student Grant so people can be retrained or trained in the first place to have those meaningful jobs and meaningful participation in the economy. So those are the many ways that we will do so by protecting the economy, keeping Canadians safe, and preparing our economy to come roaring back when we finally defeat COVID-19 once and for all. Thanks, Rob.
Okay. Thank you, James. Justin, you can go ahead with your answer.
All right, thank you very much. So I would actually propose to end all COVID-19 mandates, regulations, get back to normal as we were before the COVID-19 pandemic. I would end all government subsidies such as CERB and move on with how things are supposed to be. So if a business or a person wants to continue following the mask mandates and the vaccines, that's all up to them, but we shouldn't be coercing anyone into doing something they do not want, especially since it violates our constitutional charter rights. So just get back to normal. Everyone goes back to work as we did before. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Justin. And last person to answer this one, Jan. Jan, go ahead. You're muted, Jan.
Yes, I realize that. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for the question. I've thought about this, and I think that we have to make sure that workplaces are safe, and that we also have to ensure for our especially our small and medium-sized business owners, and also for our farming community, that we're providing the resources so that they can ensure that the workplaces are safe for their employees and also safe for them, and of course for the public. And I think that's really important, and we would help small businesses because there have been a lot of additional costs this past year in terms of COVID, and that we're going to ensure that they have the resources that are provided by the federal government to ensure that they can get up and running, and that people are going to feel safe and secure, not only in their place of work, but also that the public is going to be safe in terms of attending and going into those businesses. I think that the other thing is very much is that we're going to encourage the public to get vaccinated. I think that's really extremely important because the public are feeling kind of shy about going into businesses. In terms of employees, I think that the other thing, and this is what I'm also hearing, has to do with is that they are feeling that maybe in some of these businesses that they're not paying enough, and so we want to really increase the minimum wage, and we're also going to help small business be able to afford to do that. So I think that that's really important, and also providing paid sick leave, and so that businesses are incurring that, but then in fact we can provide that to the employees of businesses. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jan.
So our next order for question 3 would be James, Justin, Jan, and then Ben. And that question is: trade brings money into Canada from other countries. A portion becomes tax dollars, supporting the Canadian economy. What strategies would your party have for these businesses? And James, you're up first, please.
Thanks, Chris. So trade is a very important part of the Canadian economy. We know Canada has great trade agreements with a number of large trading partners all across the world. This year, we've negotiated them with our largest trading partners, the United States, the European Union, the United Kingdom. So the strategy for these businesses when it comes to trade, a Liberal government would always support small businesses and any business to take advantage of our Canadian economy. We've worked very hard, and a re-elected government will continue to work very hard to make sure that small businesses are ready to take advantage of Canada's booming economy when we come roaring back from this pandemic. So trade agreements, I know, are sometimes a charged issue when it comes to supply managed sectors. That's something we're very cognizant of, and a Liberal government will always stand up for supply management and make sure our supply managed sectors continue to be protected. In the trade agreements we've pledged that we will not trade away any further access to our supply managed sectors, and we mean that. Look at the trade agreement with the United Kingdom that we've just signed after the new NAFTA, as it's called. With the United Kingdom, we did not give up any market access for supply managed businesses and sectors, and we will continue that.
Thank you, James. Justin?
Thank you very much. Yes, Canada, we do trade quite a lot with many countries around the world, Europe, and definitely the United States. We have a pretty good partnership with them overall. So as we already heard, we definitely don't want to trade away anything. We would definitely want to make sure that we get a fair value for any trade that we happen to make. We don't want to become, say, negative or in the black when it comes, or in the red when it comes to trading. We don't want to have any deficits. We want to support our businesses, our agriculture, small businesses, especially since we're in a small riding here in Huron-Bruce. So whatever we can do to help them continue operating would be very beneficial to us, not only for the large multi-million-dollar or multi-billion-dollar corporations. We want to make sure we don't leave anyone out. And thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Justin. And Jen, it'll be your turn, please, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So we know that the NDP agriculture is a viable economic sector, and it's time for the government that is working on the side of Canadian farmers, producers, and of course, farm families. I can tell you from the NDP, there is also a commitment to fully protect supply management and promise to introduce a payment protection program for produce growers, while also take immediate steps to restore protection for growers selling to the United States under the Perishable Commodities Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Ben, your turn, sir.
Thank you for the question. There are a few trade deals out there, I think, right off the bat that we would look at. And it's countries that have like-minded democratic countries. And so the Commonwealth trade deal, it's often called CANZUK. I think that would be definitely worthwhile. Also, Canada, India, I think there's a great opportunity there as well. The other thing I mentioned in the beginning of my speech, my opening statement, was I think we need to go back and look at our existing trade deals and see where we're not being treated fairly. It's unbelievable to me that we have a trade deficit in beef with the United Kingdom. It's unbelievable that we have a trade deficit in pork and beef with the European Union for this year. We need to make sure that these issues are dealt with. Also with durum wheat in Italy, it's unacceptable. So we need to go back and look at fix some of the issues that are currently with our current trade deals. The other thing is we also need to address our food processing sector. I mentioned that earlier. We need to be able to fill those 30,000 unfilled jobs, or else we're never going to reach our full potential. We also have a container shortage right now in Canada, but let's just say in North America, it's unbelievable as well. So we need to address that. And long term, I think we need to look at another port on the eastern seaboard. We're almost at full capacity right now, and to continue to grow, we'll need to look at that. So there's tremendous opportunities. And as well, another long-term issue is with the border. And whether it's leakage in spent hens or whether it's leakage in dairy or any of the others, we need to make sure that we have improvements with CBSA so they have the resources to adhere to, say, the USMCA trade deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Rob?
Okay. For question number 4, the order for answering this time is Justin. What relationship would your party's platform be in regard to carbon acquisition program and water pertaining to agriculture as a whole? Okay, so go ahead, Justin.
All right, yeah, just give me, I'm just reading the question. You were a little bit laggy there. In regard to carbon. Okay, so I believe that carbon is actually a beneficial aspect to agriculture. Many greenhouses pump carbon dioxide into the greenhouse in order to help them grow. It's one of their main food sources: sun, water, carbon dioxide. Very basic. So carbon acquisition program and water pertaining to agriculture, I would definitely want to try to, one, get rid of the carbon tax or any carbon-based schemes. They shouldn't need to pay for those things. Water, we need to make sure that we have good water access to the farms for irrigation where it's needed. And whatever we can do to lower those costs and increase production is what we need to do. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Okay, Jan.
Yes, and thank you very much for your question. The NDP is pledging, of course, to work with farmers to promote sustainable land management techniques and methods to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And they also realize that very much as efforts will be made to help the sector access low carbon tools and technology and assist with adaptation to climate induced weather changes, as well as pest and invasive species. One of the things is very much about farming in terms of, you could say, sustainable methods. That is that often the inputs that have to go in produce a lot of carbon. Or just say in terms of kind of energy use and things like that. And I really noticed that they feel that very much unfair, that in terms of paying carbon taxes, because they don't have really a way at this point until we say make changes in that sector to lower their carbon tax. So they shouldn't be, you could say, penalized because of that, and especially when they're competing with other producers from other countries. And so we would absolutely look at that in terms of helping them create some of the additional tools for more sustainability, and also not allow them to be penalized internationally. So thank you.
Okay. All right. In regards to the carbon acquisition program or carbon programs, the most important thing to recognize right now is that farmers are charged a carbon tax. They're charged the carbon tax on their fuel and to heat their barns, and they're given no recognition of any of the environmental good that they do on farm. Sequestration in your woodlot, sequestration in a hayfield, sequestration in a cornfield, whatever it may be. And that's unfair. And the initiative is long overdue, in my opinion. And there's no recognition for no-till drilling, and there's no initiative, in my opinion, for the current government, at least, in enhancing the environmental farm plan would all make a big difference. And if you look at our area with the rivers, whether you're in Bayfield, Goderich, or anywhere going east, Southampton, with the Saugeen, it's vital. It's vital that we protect those cold creeks, rivers, streams, because it all feeds into the lake. And any tools that we can give to the farmers to further enhance their environmental issues should be supported. And the revenue generated out of sequestration should be allocated right back to them, not to a government bureaucracy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. And
Well, James still gets to speak. It's not as long as, yeah, that's what I mean. Though.
All right, so I guess I'll go next. I think Rob cut out there. But, I'll go next on mine. So climate change is something that's very important for the Liberal Party. We're the only party that has an actual plan to combat climate change. While the Conservative Party is trying to figure out if climate change is even real, we're going to take real action to combat that. Now, the price on carbon has proven internationally to be the most effective means of doing that. However, I understand and that in a lot of aspects of agriculture, there is not yet any alternative to fossil fuels. I will work hard to advocate to whatever government is in power that farmers need an exemption to this while there's no viable alternative. Any program that provides a viable alternative and lowers greenhouse gas emissions, I will advocate for you to the federal government in charge. When I hear about a lack of initiative, I ask you, the farmers of Huron-Bruce, to ask, where has your MP been during the last two mandates when these things were being discussed? Where were the letters to the Minister of Agriculture? Where were the questions in question period? It's very important, and you need a representative that's going to bring your voice to Ottawa when people are making decisions about that. And that's what you get with a Liberal MP, with James Rice as your MP.
Thank you, James. Our next order will be Jan, Ben, James, and then Justin. And that question is as followed. Business risk management is a very important tool for farmers throughout Canada. Can you tell me how you plan to maintain and improve the business risk management suite of programs in Canada? Do you plan to make additional contributions to agriculture in Canada? If so, in what way? That completes the question. And as I said, Jan, you're up first, please.
Okay, and thank you very much. You know what, I was thinking about the whole idea of risk management, and of course, it's very important to to farmers, and also, even in the producers in terms of perishable goods. That and in fact, I know that in this past year there was a roundtable, and that very much that the opposition NDP the people from, say, the prairie provinces were absolutely asking that at that table that it be increased, that the part that the feds would provide would increase and be more of a match for the provinces, and to increase it. And in fact, it had been lowered before, and that they wanted to go back to up to 85%. And I believe that very much that was what the NDP is advocating for too. So thank you. They're taking the risk. And they're, and of course, we can't control all the things that happen in terms of farming in Canada, that we should also be very much behind our farm families and our producers in terms of ensuring that the kinds of outputs they have to do, that they're not going to, you could say, lose the family farm. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Ben, you're up now, please, sir.
Thanks, Chris. And just for James, I asked the very question that you brought up in the House of Commons to your Liberal Agriculture Minister about farmers in Huron-Bruce not getting recognition for their carbon sequestration. She had no answer, and I know farmers are waiting on it, and it had about 30,000 views on Twitter. But the business risk management, it's time for everybody to recognize that agri-stability just doesn't really work. It's been
Yeah, Mr. Lobb, we're dealing with that next question, please. The question that was written up.
It's business risk management, right? And agri-stability is business risk management. So I'm just on agri-stability, which is part of business risk management. I think we'd all agree that it hasn't worked well. It has worked in some cases, but it isn't predictable and bankable. And I think it's time that we take a look and, for example, in our case, work with a provincial jurisdiction that has a program that goes over well, which is the current risk management program. And we could be a supplier and investor in that program as a federal government, a partner with the provinces to deliver stable, predictable, and transparent payments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. James, your response, sir.
Thanks, Chris. So as the other candidates have said, and I agree with, there's a lot of things that we can't anticipate. We've really understood that in the last 18 months. So risk management is very important. Farms are crucially important to our economy, but they're of course also businesses. So managing risk so that people don't lose their family farms and we don't lose this vital sector to our economy is very important. And in my roundtable with farmers yesterday, a common theme I heard is how the agri-stability program doesn't work for them. And that's why we need an advocate. I'm a lawyer by profession. What I do is advocate for people. And if elected as your MP, my client will be my community, and I will advocate for you to get those results. Looking at other programs that work is great, having the issue studied, but ultimately we need to hear from the people it affects the most. And that's how we're going to make meaningful change. And that is what my commitment to the agricultural sector that I will do.
Thank you, James. Justin, your response to that question, please.
Yep, thank you. Yes, farms definitely can be risky because no one knows what the weather can hold or what the economy is going to do. Prices go up and down all the time. And we need to, as we've been talking about, manage that risk. So with the smaller businesses, the smaller farms, they have a much smaller margin than the larger corporations do. And whether it be big or small, we want to make sure that no farm goes under because we rely so heavily on the food and the products that they produce. So whether we look at kind of into the agri-stability or more of the provincial option, definitely need to talk with the farmers who it affects the most. We can look at numbers and statistics all day long, but those who are actually in it are the ones I would want to listen to the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin. Rob, sorry, Jan. She's already gone.
Okay, sorry, for up to question number 6 now. The order for this question to answer is Ben, James, Justin, Jan. So more and more young Canadians are leaving the family farm and fewer joining the industry, resulting in a chronic workforce shortage in the agri-food sector. How do you plan to address this labor shortage? Ben?
Well, one of the big weaknesses I can see is, obviously, I don't think that young people know all the amazing jobs that are out there in the agricultural sector. Yes, if you grow up on a farm, you would learn from your parents and kind of understudy from a very early age, and make your decision if you want to stay on the farm or get in a farm related industry. But a lot of people don't understand all the amazing jobs that are in the agricultural supply chain and all the way through, whether it's engineering, whether it's high tech and robotics, whether it's in science, tech, biology, all these exciting jobs. And we need to work with provinces in the education sector, college and university, to encourage our young people to get into these trades and learn these skills. And in addition to that, that's what's going to be part of our trade going forward, and put our export business in agriculture on turbocharge. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. James?
Thanks, Rob. So there's, of course, a labor shortage across the country in a lot of sectors, but agriculture is experiencing that significantly. The latest statistics are that, for every one person seeking a job, there's 3 available ones. So there's a huge opportunity here to increase what we can do for people. So there's a lot of different issues that are going into this, the labor shortage. So I think, first of all, we take a whole of government approach to make sure that people learn about the fantastic careers that are in the ag sector. And that happens in colleges, that happens in universities, that happens in the trades. But we have to start before that. We need to work with the provinces and territories so that elementary and high school students are exposed to the great career opportunities awaiting them in agriculture. There's a number of favorable programs in the Income Tax Act, the Lifetime Capital Gains Exemption, that apply to family farms, so we can keep these things in the home, in the family. Also, the available credit from Farm Credit Canada for young farmers has been doubled. So it's easier for people to be able to take over the family farm or other farms. But ultimately, it comes down to exposure, education, and training. And we're supporting people with education and training, no matter what field they go into. But we need to give that exposure to agriculture so people know about the high quality jobs that are there, that our economy is waiting for.
All right, so for the labor shortage in the agricultural sector, we know that there's a shortage pretty much across the board right now. It's unfortunate, but we have it. So when it comes to agriculture, we do already happen to have some temporary foreign workers, and that's just what they are. It's temporary. What we need to do is something more permanent. As is mentioned previously, we need to ensure that we educate others into what benefit, what exciting jobs and opportunities there are in the agricultural sector. It's not always waking up at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning milking cows. There are a lot of other opportunities that can actually be quite enjoyable. But since most people aren't aware of those options, we need to make them aware. So the main part of it is an educational system, and continue our temporary workers until we can build a more permanent Canadian structure around our workers in the agriculture system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Justin. And Jan?
Yes, and thank you very much for the question. I think that one of the things when we're talking about a shortage of workers is that we have to have a very much a whole Canadian food strategy approach, and that's what the NDP is recommending, and to also address the needs and priorities of investing in our agricultural communities, and particularly supporting our young and new farmers, and taking steps to ensure rural livelihoods are good and sustainable. Having said that, one of the things that very much the NDP wants to establish is a pathway to permanent residency for workers from other countries who came to Canada during the pandemic to work in agriculture, for example, and other caregiving or other pursuits. And I think that's really important, that, you know, people coming to Canada or working in our agriculture sector, that they would very much like to become citizens, and that we need to make that possible, because they very much are coming from an agriculture communities from other countries. And I also think in terms of education and thinking about this and being a woman, is that we need to support more options for women to build careers in the trades, for example, and other non-traditional fields like agriculture. And that therefore that we can support that. And I think that's another way forward in terms of government. And because I'm the school board trustee for the Blue Water District School Board, I can tell you that we do have provided very much in our local area a agricultural program for students, and it's supported by our Bruce County Federation of Agriculture. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Chris?
Thank you. The next order for question 7 will be James, Justin, Jan, and then Ben. And that question is from 1996 to 2016, Ontario lost 1.5 million acres of farmland, and our province continues to lose an average of 5 farms per week. What will your party do to stop the loss of farmland in Canada before it significantly impacts our local food supply chain? James?
Thanks for the question, Chris. This is a concern that I'm hearing a lot from farmers around the riding. It's something that's, you know, more prominent in some areas, but it's something certainly that's encroaching in Huron-Bruce as well. So lands constitutionally are governed by the provincial government in our constitution, but all levels of government have a role to play. So we need to do incentivizing urban areas to build vertical instead of horizontal. We need to work with young farmers to make sure that they're able to take over their family farm, or others are able to expand so that they stay as farmland instead of becoming urban sprawl. We need to make sure that our class 1, 2, and 3 farmland is protected so that it doesn't become sprawling complexes. Our local culture and our rural culture is very important here in Huron-Bruce, and we need someone that can pull together all these levels of government to make sure that we come to a solution. And I'm very committed to that, to protecting our farmland. We have a beautiful piece of paradise here in Huron-Bruce, and we can't compromise that.
Thank you, James. Justin?
Thank you for the question. Yes, farms are unfortunately being sold to other corporations and businesses. More so we see in areas that are growing, our urban areas, Toronto, whatnot, Goderich. Places that as they continue to grow, they need more space. They need more houses. They need more stores and shops, which unfortunately negatively impacts the agricultural industry. What we need to do is, as James was mentioning, is try to get the urban areas to grow up instead of out. We want to educate the farmers that it's best for everyone to keep the farms in the families or with other farmers. Same as the general population. Someone wants to build a complex, why not try to buy up homes as they go for sale instead? So that's what I think what we need to do. And that's what I would push for, education, and try to slow down the sprawl of the urbanization. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Your point of view, Jan, on this question?
Yes, my point of view on this question is very much, I agreed with James, it's a provincial issue. And that in terms of, you know, losing farmland, I think we're all, you know, all really sad about that, is, you know, the loss of farmland. But I also would like to mention that, as you could also say, even though we've been talking about farm families, it's very much the loss of farm families. I mean, as we know, you know, agriculture has been very corporatized, and so what happens here is that You go big or you go home, so to speak. So I think that very much the federal government, and this is an issue right across Canada. It's a national level. Is that we very much need a roundtable in terms of, because it is a provincial issue, is to look at what we can do at a federal level to work with the provinces to ensure that we can protect farmland, because as we know, farms feed cities, and that if we don't have the land to do that on, then of course we're going to be having to import from outside of Canada, and we need to maintain our own, you could say, our own food production, so that we're not relying on others outside of the country.
Thank you, Jen. And please, Ben, your response to that question, please.
Certainly, this is anybody that's traveled around the province can see the changes around Milton area, north of Toronto. You can go east of Toronto as well. Even in and around Ottawa, it's staggering really to think of how much it's changed just in, I know the question relates back to 96, but even in the last 10 years, it's staggering. One thing we should do definitely is look at foreign ownership of residential homes. It's really, in a lot of ways, ridiculous that we have people who are bidding on homes, competing on homes that really have no plan to live in them. They're using it as an investment and potentially competing against a young family that want to have a chance at a detached or a semi-detached home. Another thing that we have in our plan is, of the 37,000 federal buildings that the federal government currently has in their portfolio, releasing 15% of those to be redeveloped into residential units. A lot of those, almost all of them, are in core urban areas, and a lot of them, as it happens, are along transit lines as well. This is something that the federal government can do to stop the sprawl. We know that COVID really exacerbated this by pushing people out into the suburbs more than ever. And we're hoping that this initiative will help them take another look and move back into the core and really slow the sprawl of development.
Okay.
Thank you, Ben.
Ready. Question number 9. Number 8, my mistake. The order for this is Justin, Jan, Ben, James. Will your party remove the carbon tax on dyed diesel and other farm-related fuels? Go ahead, Justin.
Thank you. And this is going to be a quick, easy, short one. Yes, no carbon taxes, schemes, levies, prices, anything. It's all gone. And I'm not going to play word games saying it's not called this. It's actually something else. So none of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Jan?
Yes, and thank you for the question. Our party wouldn't remove it, but I think what the party would do is is give credit to the fact that farmers and producers are stewards of the land, and that they actually do put carbon sinks in depending on the kind of farming, and that should be rewarded. So it would become a zero-sum game, if that makes sense. So you're doing these kinds of farming practices that are good for the environment and also reducing carbon from the atmosphere. You're going to be rewarded for that in terms of a credit, and therefore, it would not. We wouldn't be removing the other, but they'd be credited and benefited.
Thank you, Jan. Ben?
Taking the carbon tax off the fuels, yes, in a way. There will be some carbon pricing though, and the idea is to create a low carbon account. This is to help reach our 2030 Paris Climate Accord numbers. This account, I hope, will be able to be paired with the environmental farm plan so that farmers can create their own investments on farm that help reduce emissions and improve the overall quality of our climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And James?
Thanks, Rob. So the price on pollution that our government brought in has been proven to bring greenhouse gas emissions down. It's been proven internationally. Using the market to disincentivize greenhouse gas emissions works. However, the exception is in farming. For most most methods that farmers need, there is no alternative yet to fossil fuels. We need propane or natural gas to do drying. We need heating in homes, heating in barns, depending on where they are. There isn't yet an alternative, and farmers ought not to be punished because the market and the research hasn't yet caught up. So as your Liberal member of Parliament, I would join, for example, Private Members Bill C-205, where there was a private members bill to put an exception to farmers. I'm not speaking for the Liberal Party policy. I'm speaking as James Rice, wanting to be a member of Parliament. I would support that. Several Liberal MPs did, and this is important to my community. At the same time, the Liberal plan for climate invests in green technologies. So we're investing for research to continue to find that alternative. But until it is, we need to help farmers deal with the costs of the price on pollution, which does work overall. And that's something, again, I would commit to the farmers of this community to do as your representative.
Okay, thank you, James. Chris?
Our next question in the order will be Jan, Ben, James, and Justin. We have heard a lot of promises of new spending, but our debt and our deficit are huge. What do you and your party propose to do and get our debt and deficit under control? Jen?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Well, and that's exactly it, because I've heard some, not here tonight, but I've heard, leaders speak about this, and that some leaders have said, oh, we're not going to do, change anything to do with taxation, but absolutely NDP does. It's all about fairness. And so we feel that we need to tax the ultra rich and also close, tax loopholes, which often the ultra rich benefit, especially overseas. We're going to look at that, and we're going to take that money and we're going to put it back into programs. And our priorities of what we spend our money on would be different than other parties. So that's exactly it. And we know that when we looked at the taxation for the ultra rich, and we're talking about people that none of them live in Bruce County or Huron County, for example. We're talking about bringing more money back in of at least, $10 billion. So thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Ben, your response, sir.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, this really goes back to 2015 in my books. We handed over a balanced budget, and in the next 4 years, racked up $100 billion in new debt at a time when the economy was roaring. That would have been a time to pay down some debt, possibly for a rainy day. And unfortunately, that rainy day has come, and we've spent hundreds of billions of dollars. We have the Bank of Canada printing money. We have inflation. Some call it hyperinflation. And these are all huge concerns, because we've spent, in a lot of cases, our future generations, and we need to be very mindful of that going forward. How to get out of it? We need to get people back to work. We need to get back with the jobs plan that we've presented to get 1 million people back to work, to have the increased tax revenue from paychecks and from profits from business. And we need to be mindful of going forward. And we need to be also, at the same time, watching the dollars we're spending, but we also have to be, I would say, very courteous to those people who are getting back to work, to make sure they get back. We have to keep businesses open. We have to keep our economy open. We need all this to work in conjunction to get our country's finances back on track. We cannot become heavily indebted any more than we already are, because it'll handcuff us what we can do in the future with our country and the programs, the social programs that we enjoy today, whether it's our healthcare, our social programs. We need to have the country's finances in order to be able to fund them.
Thank you, Ben. James?
Thanks, Chris. So, of course, we've come through an unprecedented time in our history. The Liberal government took swift, quick action as our economy ground to a halt and our whole world changed almost overnight. 8 million Canadians received government support so that they could pay their mortgage, pay their rent, put food on the table, and that so businesses could stay open. That includes many of the businesses here in Huron-Bruce that I am proud and that we are proud to have supported. Going forward, governments should always be cognizant of how they're spending their money. And that's why the Liberal Party is the only party that's provided a costed platform to you. How are we going to fund increased measures? Some tax system changes. We'll have a minimum 15% income tax on the highest income earners. We're going to tax the big banks and insurance companies that have profited off people's despair during the pandemic and use that to fund new housing initiatives. And how are we not going to fund it? Certainly not by giving the rich a GST holiday before the Christmas holidays. So you can always count on the Liberal government to be cognizant of our financial situation, but we know we are at our best when we take care of each other. And you can always count on us to invest in Canadians when we need it the most. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Justin.
As I mentioned in my introduction, it seems as though the governments, they love to spend any amount of money that they get their hands on. They say balanced budgets. Not often does it happen. Sometimes it does, but definitely not in the current administration. So I would end budgeted subsidies and bailouts for corporations and non-government organizations. I would eliminate wasteful government programs. I would phase out foreign development, or I would phase out foreign development and aid and focus on our international aid towards emergency humanitarian crises. So earthquakes, humanitarian efforts, I would still support other countries, but I wouldn't just give money to other countries for nothing in return. And by eliminating all of these costs, that will more than take away our deficit and then start tackling our debt. We have so much interest on our debt that we're going to be paying this off for generations, even if we can balance our books tomorrow. So we need to get this done and dealt with as soon as possible. This is very important. Less money now gives us more money later in terms of debt payment. So it's paid off as quickly as possible and will be very, very sufficient in years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Rob, next question.
Question number 10. The order for this is Ben, James, Justin, and Jan. Will your party ensure that revenue collected from any carbon pricing initiative be used to assist agriculture in research and innovation, adaptation, and resilience building measures? Go ahead,
Yes.
Ben.
Thanks. Yes, it will. None of it will touch the government's hands. It'll go directly back to the farmer in question, let's just say, or the individual in question. And like I said earlier on, it would be wonderful to be able to work out a plan with the environmental farm plan and these accounts to be able to do good on farm. I think everybody that's been in farming long enough has seen the benefits of the environmental farm plan, whether it's improvements on farm or machinery or whatever it is. And I think it'd be worthwhile, and it falls in line with the current way of thinking. And let's see how it works out.
Thank you, Ben. James?
Thanks, Rob. So the carbon pricing, of course, has proved to be an effective method. And even the Conservative parties signed on that a price on carbon is the best way to put our greenhouse gas emissions down. That being said, that's not the only part of our climate plan. We have a climate plan that invests in green technologies, that research and innovation are a major part of that. We need to support those things because our need for energy doesn't go away because our need for fossil fuels has to. We need a viable substitute, and I'm very much looking forward to finding those alternatives. You know, right here we have great energy alternatives for clean energy here in Bruce County. We have Bruce Power, the world's largest nuclear power plant. We're investing in small modular reactors. We are investing. I'm very interested to hear about hydrogen fuel cells that I've heard about on the campaign trail this week. Yes, we will invest in research innovation to find the next viable alternative for fossil fuels and protect our climate for generations to come.
Okay, thank you, James. Justin?
Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, I would not collect any carbon pricing. However, if it is still on the books, I would definitely push that we use that to assist agriculture in terms of the research and innovation, because they do need to adapt with the lower number of workers who are available. We need to be able to increase our technology so that fewer people are needed, possibly. We need to make sure that they can get their products to market. Again, leading back to the roads we talked about earlier. So any of that carbon cost, we definitely need to bring back into the agriculture industry. But again, if I had it my way, there would be no cost and no one would have to worry about that expense. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Justin. And Jan?
Okay, and thank you very much. And of course, our party would ensure that the revenue collected from any carbon pricing initiative would be used to assist agriculture, especially in research and innovation and adaptation and resilient building measures. It was just this spring that actually the NDP brought forward a private members bill. It was on the national soil health in terms of that, because it is an environmental initiative. And they were making recommendations to develop a national strategy to promote efforts across Canada to conserve and improve the health of soil. And that would be, one thing in terms of helping, the soil to be more, to be more productive for farmers, and then and require less carbon intensity. Having said that, this government called the snap election and all the things that they could have done, and I've actually recommended even here through James tonight, they had willing partners. The NDP was quite willing to continue and keeping this minority government in power for the next 2 years. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Chris?
Thank you. Our next order is James, Justin, Jen, and then Ben. And the question is, farmers rely on the air, soil, and water to conduct their businesses and have invested interest in the sustainability of these resources. How will your party work with Ontario agricultural sector?
Thanks, Chris, for the question.
Yeah, actually, there's a little bit more. I just had to get my page flipped over, sorry. To implement an agricultural perspective to fighting climate change and sustainable managing of our resources. The question is up in the chat now, if you'd just like to have a quick read, since it took me a while to flip the page.
Thanks,
Go ahead,
Chris.
sir.
So, of course, farmers are everybody in our community are at the forefront of climate change. They're experiencing the hotter hots, the colder colds, the wetter floods, the drier droughts, and the changing weather patterns. So they're at the forefront of being able to advise us what's the best way to go forward. How will we work with the agricultural sector to implement an agricultural perspective? It's by listening to them. As I'm Huron-Bruce's member of parliament, I'll have regular agricultural roundtables for this issue. But protecting our natural resources, for example, water or fresh water. Here in Huron-Bruce, we're sitting on the largest freshwater reserve in the world. We have the Great Lakes right here, and beautiful ones at that. So a re-elected Liberal government will create the Canada Water Agency with a mandate to protect our water infrastructure. As your MP in Huron-Bruce, I'll fight to bring that Canada Water Agency here and create good jobs here in Huron-Bruce and monitor Lake Huron's health for generations to come to protect it for everyone.
Thank you, Justin. Jen? I'm sorry, James. Justin is next.
Thank you. So the climate has been changing since the dawn of time, from the period of the dinosaurs to the last ice age and everywhere in between. As the centuries rolled by, temperature and weather conditions continued to cycle violently, and humans were not always around to blame for it. In Canada, we are already carbon neutral, and what we can do to manage our waste and recycle, we can improve on. Yes, there's always room for improvement, but the resources and technology already exist. We just need to use them more effectively. For those who choose to pollute our beautiful nation, we must continue to be vigilant with financial penalties, strict fines, and the payment of restitution for those negatively affected by their waste management or lack thereof. Thankfully, for the most part, we do not see our rivers and lakes covered in waste as documented in many parts of India and China. Canada's already looking after the planet, and there is realistically nothing we can do to change the climate, being that we produce less than 2% or just over 1% of the world's emissions. Canada produces, so by us changing, we could completely stop breathing and everything, and it wouldn't impact the world at all. So we just need to continue our recycling programs, continue our educational aspect of it. And when it comes to agriculture, if we need to possibly talk with the provinces about maybe even say windbreaks with lining with trees and things like that, whatever it takes to help. But in the grand scheme of things, there's very little we can actually realistically do. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Jen?
Yes, so I'm going to talk a little bit more then about the National Soil Health Strategy, which the NDP brought forward in the last Parliament. And of course, it died when there was a snap election called. So very much that the strategies develop a national soil information system, and it supports and encourages farmers and other land users in the use of best management practices. And it's about also encouraging, improving the communication of sharing of soil knowledge. I think very much that this is the public awareness, particularly around this critical role soil plays in supporting agricultural productivity and maintaining health ecosystems and meeting global challenges, including food security and meet climate change. So when they're talking about what we're going to do and the sustainability there is one strategy and in terms of a program and having a whole reporting system in terms of sustainable soil management. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Ben?
I think the first thing we need to do is recognize that agriculture is not part of the problem with climate change, that agriculture is part of the solution with climate change. That's very obvious. I think one of the beginning steps is a revenue recognition program that will allow credit for natural carbon sequesters on your farm, whether it's your woodlot, whether it's marginal lands that are in grass possibly, and also the sequestering that a corn crop or a wheat crop or a soybean crop would be able to generate and sequester in a normal year. In addition to that, I think the carbon account that I talked about earlier, coupled with an environmental farm plan, will allow farmers to make decisions that work best for them to improve what they want to do on their land. And if you take a look just in the last 10 years, for example, the use of cover crops. I mean, that is a great initiative for soil retention and improvement, and programs like that make it worthwhile for farmers to make that investment, and they'll do it. But I do want to make sure that everyone knows agriculture is not the problem here. Agriculture is your friend, and agriculture is one of the main solutions, in my opinion, to tackling our emission situation in Canada. I think that pretty well covers what I had to say. But I also would like to mention too, when we do have a tough year, when climate does get the better of us, like it is in Western Canada and Northern Ontario, we need a program like Agri-Recovery that actually responds more quickly, and delivers more dollars to farmers who are in need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Rob, next question, please.
Okay. The order for this question will be Justin, Jan, Ben, and James. Will your party increase the compensation rate for the federal portion of agri-stability payments from 70% to 80%? Go ahead, Justin.
Thank you. So the agri-stability, it seems like a fairly good program going back to the risk management. What I would do is I would actually talk with the farmers first before I commit to anything. Because I only lived on a farm for a number of years. I never ran one. I don't know what it's like from one year to the next in terms of the revenue, the money, potential loss and risk. So I would definitely speak with the farmers of Huron-Bruce and see what would they want for me to advocate for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Jan?
Yes, and thank you very much. And definitely, as I mentioned previously, we had I believe, a similar question, and I said that the NDP provincial agricultural critics were very much in favor during that round table that the feds increased their percentage of payments, and in terms of the provincial part, and that we would definitely support that, because we very much want to sustain our farming community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Ben?
Thanks, Rob. And this is one I can remember back in 05 and 06 in Holmesville debating against Paul Steckley, and it was Case at that time, and Case didn't work. Wasn't bankable, wasn't predictable, wasn't transparent. And if we're all going to be honest, really, agri-stability isn't either. It's a very complicated system, even for the best of chartered accountants to stick handle through. It's time to listen to the provinces. It's time to finally listen to farm producers. And if risk management, say, for example, the program in Ontario, we know it works, we know it's predictable and bankable, we should be partners in a program like that. If you look at last year when we were in the midst of the pandemic and there were pork farmers getting force majeure forced on them, they were losing tens of thousands of dollars a week. They were told by the government, well, agri-stability, but it's not reactive, it's not predictable, it's not bankable. And when the bank is calling, when you're bleeding money, you need a program that reacts quickly. You need a program that will deliver money to your bank account very quickly so that you can pay the bills and do the humane thing and continue to feed your animals, which all pork farmers did that I spoke with. But these are the things that we need to do. We need to have honest conversations, and we need to charge forward. Risk management, from every meeting I've been to through the years, appears to be very popular. And I think that we need to partner with provinces where they have programs that work, that are predictable, bankable, and transparent. And I think their banker would also appreciate that as well.
Thank you, Ben. And James?
Thanks, Rob. Canadians have come to understand that they can count on the Liberal Party to have their backs when things get tough. That includes farmers, of course, and the agricultural sector. It's such a vital part of our community and to our very survival. Like, without food, that's a basic building block of life. So, of course, Canadians and farmers and everyone in the agriculture sector can count on the Liberal government to do that. And the proof's in the pudding on that one. When our economy and our world shut down overnight, we quickly introduced relief programs with the COVID relief programs. So farmers can count on the same partner, the same willing and eager partner with the federal government. And farmers in Huron-Bruce can count on the same fierce advocate that Canadians and farmers can count on from the government, with me as their local representative. And I will always stand up for farmers, and I'll always make sure there are government relief programs when they need the most. Canadians have come to count on us for that, and they're going to continue to count on us for that.
Okay. Thank you, James. Chris?
So my order will be Jan, Ben, James, and Justin. And question 13, will your party do what is required to reach a consensus among provinces and territories, territorial governments, to restore the payment trigger to 85% of the program participants' reference margin? And Jan?
Hi, I'm actually going to, I thought you were absolutely talking about the last one, and I'm not sure. So I believe it's the same program, and I think that the last one was 80. I do know that there was something also about 85%. And so we would have to look at that from the lens of having a conversation with the provinces and, of course, the farming communities.
Thank you, Jan. Ben?
Thank you very much. I can't speak on behalf of any provincial ag ministers, but of course we have our own local ag minister at the provincial level. And I believe that she, and I believe that many other ag ministers across the country are very open and willing to have discussions, maybe not in regards to the 85%, but I think really looking at reworking something that works long-term. And I know I sound like a broken record, but really that is predictable, bankable, and transparent. And it just has to change. And I can only imagine, I don't have to imagine, I talked to many farmers last year, especially in the pork sector, and they were on the brink, let's be honest. Some had to sell farms to stay in business, to keep the family farm together. And one of the problems is that they just couldn't predict what agri-stability was going to pay. And it's ridiculous that you pay into these programs and play by the rules all through the years, and you just never really know. It may pay out once, but we know it doesn't pay out consistently if you needed it. And that's why I think the risk management program in Ontario is likely the way to go at this point in time. And let's build on that. Let's fund it. Let's support it, and build something for the future that farmers can count on.
Thank you, Ben. James?
Thanks, Chris. So this is also something I've heard from farmers, how the current formula isn't working for them to meet their needs. My style of leadership is a consensus builder. I like getting all stakeholders in a room and talking issues through. With most issues we encounter in our federal system of government, we need some collaboration between federal, provincial, and usually municipal governments. This issue would be no different. This is something where the federal and provincial governments need to work together so we have the best possible solutions for farmers to meet their needs so that this crucial part of our economy and our lives is protected. They deserve, people in the agricultural sector deserve to count on the government support just like everyone else does. When I talk about moving forward for everyone, farmers and agriculture are a huge part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Justin, sir.
Thank you. So similar to the last question, I would be talking with the farmers in Huron-Bruce and seeing what they would most benefit from. As Ben said, it could definitely be a different program altogether, but my main priority is the farmers and what would benefit them the most. As we know, they need access to money quicker in case something comes up. So talking with the farmers and putting that plan forward is my goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Rob, last question.
Okay. This will be the last question of the evening before we go on to our closing remarks. The order for the questions, for the answers this time is Ben, James, Justin, and Jan. The question is, the temporary foreign worker program helps fill a vital labor gap that cannot otherwise be met by Canada's domestic supply. What does your party intend to do to promote and enhance this program? Ben?
Thanks, Rob. And I think that is a great question to close the debate on tonight. This is mission critical for our agricultural industry in Canada to survive, for Huron-Bruce to move forward. The labor market opinion, the labor market assessment is cumbersome, clumsy, and delay. Everybody knows that there is a labor shortage. Everybody knows that there is a huge labor shortage in agriculture. We should just move fast, make these almost like a rapid response to approve these. And in addition to that, to be able to bring a temporary foreign worker to this country that is going to work in the agricultural sector, the food processing sector, there should be a rapid response. There should be rapid approvals. If there are people around the world that want to work here and fill the 30,000 plus outstanding jobs just in the food processing sector, we need to bring them here. It is the only way. And I believe in giving them an opportunity, if they choose a path to citizenship and becoming a full-fledged Canadian citizen. This is the only way we can move forward. We need to encourage people who are looking for work now to fill these positions, but we know there's just not enough people that will do them and that are in the rural areas. So we need to streamline the LMO. We need to streamline the process for temporary foreign workers, and we need to get them here, encourage them to want to stay here and raise their families and build a future in Canada. Thank you, and I thank everybody for a great debate tonight.
Okay, thank you, Ben. James?
Thanks, Rob. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the need for further action by the Government of Canada and its partners to protect temporary foreign workers. Year after year, these workers come to Canada to support our agriculture and agri-food industries and contribute greatly to Canada's food security. Their hard work and expertise has been instrumental over the years, and especially during the pandemic, and they deserve to be safe in doing so. Obviously, temporary foreign workers fill a massive need for workers in the agricultural sector. The Liberal Party and me and myself are very supportive of that, but we need to make sure people are protected when they come. We also need to make sure that the proper immigration controls are there that Canadians have come to expect. So easing it, making it easier for people to come in, I'm always supportive of that. But we have to make sure we do things right and safely. And again, we do that by meeting with stakeholders, hearing these concerns, and making good government policy doesn't happen overnight. But we're cognizant of the need for temporary foreign workers and of the need to protect them once they're here and support employers to be able to fill their labor shortage gaps. So that's something that you can count on the Liberal Party and you can count on James Rice as your MP for.
Okay, thank you, James. Justin?
Yep. So the temporary foreign worker program definitely fills a vital need in our roles in Canada. As everyone knows, a lot of shortages out there right now, agricultural industry everywhere. So we do need to speed up the process for those who want to work with us here in Canada, but we need to also ensure that it's done safely and thoroughly. We don't want to skip any steps to the process. So for example, if a worker has shown to be successful here in Canada, their application would be able to get sped through, similar to the Nexus card going into the United States. We want to make sure that who we have coming in is going to be doing the jobs that are needed, not taken from Canadians who are willing to do the work, but we need all of those 30,000 plus jobs to be filled as quickly as possible. So we work with the foreign governments, the individuals, and of course the sectors and individual businesses as needed with the demand on the workers. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Justin. And last answer, Jan.
And thank you very much. I've also talked earlier about temporary foreign workers, and we want to make sure that there is a clear and transparent process in place for farm producers and the farming community to bring foreign workers over here. But also at the same time, we want to make sure that there is a process in place to ensure that temporary workers who do come to this country to work are also treated fairly, and that their health and safety is taken care of, and that if there is a problem, that there is a process for those workers to get help if things aren't going exactly how you could say the initial contract came out on. I also agree, and I said that as very much the NDP wants to ensure that temporary workers who have come here, they've contributed to Canada and to the development and very much in the agricultural sectors, that we would absolutely, if they wanted to move here permanently and of course, grow their families and of course work in the agricultural community, that we would also very much encourage immigration and going through the immigration process, because obviously they have made it a success in Canada and they've made agriculture successful, and I do know that that's very important. So thank you very much, and great debate this evening.
Okay, thank you, Jan. So for the closing remarks tonight, it's going to be in reverse order. So we'll start with Justin, followed by James, then Ben, and then Jan. So if you want to start, Justin.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, tonight. For too long, Canada has been voting for the lesser of the evils when it comes to election time, because many people end up detesting the party in power and then voting for the other main party just to get them out and repeating the process over and over and over and over. Voting for a lesser evil is still voting for evil. The party leader decides what he or she wants the party direction to go, and everyone either has to follow suit or risk being kicked out. For example, the Conservative Party kicked their Yukon candidate, Jonas Smith, out of the party because of his views on the COVID vaccine only 3 days before this election. Or the Liberal Party that kicked out Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott. As an independent candidate, I will never have to worry about having to toe the party line or risk my position because I will only have you, the constituents, to answer to. And I will never have to try to spin a story to convince everyone that something is good, even if I don't think it is. I can be honest and give you my opinion without fear. How can a member of parliament who is supposed to be your voice in Ottawa do his or her job properly if there's a risk they might be kicked out of the party for wrong think? I think that's a huge conflict at your expense. An independent has the flexibility that no one else has in fighting for the people, because while everyone else has to stick to their platform, I'm able to get your feedback and fight for that. No more having Ottawa dictating to you. How many people want to pay more for gas and groceries? So why are we paying more? Because the parties believe in making things more expensive for everyone with their high spending and high taxes, like the carbon tax is one small example. Now, if everyone goes and votes for the platform that most aligns with their beliefs and no other reason, we can turn this country around so fast and pass along the joys that we knew growing up to our children and grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. James?
Great. Thanks, Rob. And thanks everyone for listening to our debate tonight. Agriculture is very important to all of us in this riding, and the importance can't be understated. What you get with me as your MP is not someone who was born and raised on a farm. That's not my background or experience. But you do get someone who advocates for you, who listens to you, and who strives to understand and empathize with you about what your issues are, and someone whose door will always be open to you. I'm fortunate that I've married into a farming family. My in-laws are farmers. My sister-in-law is a soil scientist. I'm really, really thankful for that background and experience. And I'm really thankful for the relationships I'm building with farmers across Huron-Bruce. When I had my agricultural roundtable yesterday, there were some common themes, and we've touched on most of them tonight. But something that really struck me was the farmers in all the sectors had one common issue. I don't have a voice. And that is disgusting to me. Such a crucial industry, such a crucial part of our economy and society, to feel unrepresented by the people making decisions and in Parliament is an issue, a serious issue that I will correct as your member of Parliament. You get a serious, zealous advocate with James Rice as your member of Parliament, and I will never stray away from that. That is my commitment to you, and I hope that I can count on your support on September 20th to give you a voice in Ottawa again. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Ben?
Thanks very much, Rob, Chris, Margaret, Joanne, everybody behind the scenes with the Huron-Bruce Federations of Agriculture. This was very well done tonight. I've always viewed these two debates, I mean, we've combined them. I've always viewed these two debates as the premier debates in the Huron-Bruce circuit, and congratulations to you all. No technology glitches that I'm aware of. I wasn't watching the debate at home, so I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to assume it all went off without a glitch. So congratulations. We've touched on a lot of important topics tonight, ladies and gentlemen. The future of agriculture, the sustainability of agriculture, both at the export markets, ports, protecting supply management, growing our sectors, being able to keep our food processing sector full of employees. We like I mentioned earlier, 30,000 people we're short. Think of what we can do if we were able to fill each and every position. Think of the opportunity in the export markets we would have in our red meat sector. The future is unbelievable in agriculture. The environmental side to be recognized properly by a federal government as carbon sequesters, whether it's your woodlots, your crops, your grasslands, whatever it is. And also the predictability and bankability of our business risk management suites. We have been lacking this for a number of years. It's time to make it predictable, and bankable and transparent so the farmers can plan. Sure, in a year like this year, it's easy to plan, but we don't know what's around the corner next year, and we need a program that can support the family farm and make it viable in the future. On September 20th, I ask you to vote Ben Lobb, vote Conservative. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And Jan?
Yes, thank you. Many people know me as ardent supporter of the public education, as a longtime school trustee and of course, vice chair of the Blue Water District School Board. I will bring the same dedication and commitment to all the people of Huron-Bruce and champion small towns and make rural Canada matter. The heart of the NDP government, led by Jagmeet Singh, is focused on people and making life more affordable. This election is our chance to build a better future for everyone. A future with healthcare that puts you first, a future with good jobs and help when you need it, a future where your life is more affordable and the ultra-rich pay their fair share, a future where our communities can confront the climate crisis and win, a future where we take on long-standing inequalities that are hurting our country and end them. It's time to vote better. New Democrats like myself are ready to lead us forward together to rebuild better than ever and get results for our small towns and our rural and agricultural communities. Vote Jan Johnstone on September 20th. Thank you for your support. Your vote matters to me.
Okay. Thank you, Jan. Chris?
Closing remarks. On behalf of Bruce and Huron County Federations of Agriculture, I would like to thank everyone for their interest and attendance this evening. I hope this evening has allowed you to understand each candidate stands on the issues and that you exercise your right and vote on September 20th or at one of the advanced polls that are available in your area. And special thanks to all our staff that helped put this together. And special thanks to the candidates for being here for us and help supporting this event. Thank you.